Working with the Mission crew, they've been doing this for so many years. You
Yeah.
know, it's the same crew on every movie, and it's such a well-oiled machine. There's some crazy stunts there, and they're all real. And that really is Tom. It's not a stunt double. If one little screw is out of place on that camera that's in that plane and it starts doing a nosedive, that can come apart and that can hurt someone. Tom's philosophy is to practice to perfection on things. I've never seen someone with so much dedication. He rocks up, he shows up, he's on time, he does everything he's supposed to do. He does it with a smile on his face. He's not difficult, he's quiet, he's respectful of everyone. Everyone who walks into a room, he'll greet you, he'll say hello to you. I mean, on weekends, we're in the middle of nowhere. What are we supposed to do? And he'd organize events for us. He'd send us on safari. I mean, the one weekend we all got to go on, a 5-star Big 5 safari tour.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Kingdom of Dreams podcast, The Making of Stories. I'm your host, Jawad Mir. Today, my guest is Britt Ballantyne. She is a line producer based out of South Africa. She's been working on a lot of major Hollywood productions, including Mad Max Fury and Mission Impossible 8, The Final Reckoning. The actual final scene of the plane was all produced in South Africa, as you know, and she was part of that crew. We talked about some great things about the complexities of that entire scene. That was the last act of Mission Impossible Final Reckoning. Talked about Tom Cruise. We talked about a bit of Fury Road and some other projects that she's working on. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Britt. How did your career start in inline producing, and what was the reason? Was there a certain moment in your life that made you realize that this is what you want to do, being in films?
Yeah, so essentially, I was in art school, fine art.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't really enjoying it, and I got offered a job as a in-house researcher for director-based research with a local film company. And that really appealed to me. I've always had a passion for the arts and for film and drama and, all that kind of stuff. I was always in all the plays at school. And yeah, I started off in director-based researching, which is in the commercial sense. I worked with, a lot of the top local South African directors, helping them create their presentations, their audio and visual presentations that they present to advertising agencies in order to win a job or not. And I did that for about the first 10 years of my career. And then I just wanted more. I think there's kind of a ceiling that you can reach in that, where once you've reached the top and, every presentation you do, the directors have 90% chance of winning. And there's not much more once you've achieved that. There's kind of it's limiting for you as a human being. So I got into production. I fell into production sort of by accident, in a sense. I was working for a company called 2.0 Media, and I started to conceptualize shows for branded content. So shows like there's home fixer-upper shows where,
Oh,
a
okay.
camera crew goes in there, that kind of stuff. I started writing that kind of content and then producing that. And then I landed up in a role on Death Race 3 as the location coordinator. And that's where my jump off into feature films kind of came into from that. And I, from that, straight from Death Race onto Mad Max and on and on, and kept going.
Right. So was Mad Max your first major Hollywood film, or?
I would say my first major one, yes. I think Death Race was a sort of release to DVD.
What,
But
what
yeah,
was it
Mad
called?
Max,
Sorry. Death what? Sorry?
Death Race, Death
Death.
Race. Yeah,
Okay.
Death Race 1 was with Jason Statham,
Okay.
and then 2 and 3 were not Jason anymore, but kind of just the franchise kept on going.
Okay. So, I mean, Death Race, which came out in 2007 or 8, I believe,
Mm,
Obviously, that's been, it's been good 15 years probably since you started working on it in terms of pre-production and all that.
yeah.
And at that time, that moment that what was the bigger moment for you to get a call on to work on that? Mad Max Fury or Mission Impossible 8? Because they all kind of come after every 8, 9 years.
I would say, I was one of the first people offered a role on Mad Max. I was on Death Race, and the company that was doing both was Moonlighting Films. And they were very impressed with what I'd done on Death Race. And then they said to me, listen, um, shooting Mad Max, it's in Namibia. Will you go to Namibia for a year? Will you uproot your life? And I said, sure, as long as I can take my horse. So, yeah, myself and my horse moved to Namibia for a year. And I think, Mad Max was a great experience for me. I really, really, it was my very first really big, big budget. I mean, we don't even know what the budget was. We weren't told. Um, it's something that's really big, that you're really part of, there's thousands of people working on it. It's a massive, massive project and a massive machine. And I really, really enjoyed that. I think mission being slightly a smaller thing, as we were only shooting a portion of it here in South Africa. So,
Mm,
and as we were shooting an aerial unit, not the whole, not the whole mission team, not, the entire machine of mission didn't all come and land in South Africa. It was just,
right, right.
so smaller part of it.
Okay. Um, in terms of, when you look at a film like, um, actually, before I do that, you talked about your horse. What's your horse name?
I actually have four now.
Okay.
My horse's name is Stetson, like the cowboy hat.
It's an, and let's go something a little bit where else with this. How did you get into horses?
Um, oh, this is a funny story. I'm embarrassed myself now. So when I was a kid, my grandfather told me that he used to ride horses to school, and my little imagination was so taken by that. When it came time to being taught how to ride a bicycle, I refused to learn how to ride a bicycle, and I told my parents I want to ride a horse instead. So they got me horse riding lessons, and to this day I can't ride a bicycle.
Wow, so you actually rode a horse to your school too?
No, I didn't ride it to school, but I insisted on learning how to ride horses instead of bicycles. So to this day, I can't ride bikes. I can only ride horses.
That's interesting, but I'm sure I shouldn't say I'm sure. I know there are more people who can't ride horses as opposed to riding bikes. So
Oh yeah, yeah.
you've got something unique going. And when you moved to Namibia for a year, talk to me about that, not necessarily about the film, but that experience of being in that world with your horse and away from home for a full year. I mean, I know in the world of production, sometimes we have to be away for a few months. Obviously,
Yeah,
on a longer projects like documentaries, maybe a year.
can be longer. Yeah.
But that whole scope that you had to deal with, was it difficult to adjust? Can you run through that
I
experience?
I I loved every minute of it.
Okay.
um, I took to the country. I just I mean it's our neighboring country, so it's very similar to South Africa. Um, through the Equine community, I made a lot of local friends. So I didn't only just have the rest of the film crew to hang out with. I had a group, a support system of people outside of film who, I'd made through horse riding through the stables and all of that, having my horse there. Um, and I love the country. I think it's a really beautiful, very interesting, very stark country. You've literally got these massive dunes that just meet the ocean. It's quite it's quite surreal. Um, and I had a lovely house that I really liked. Because obviously you're not staying in hotels or anything like that for
Yeah,
that
yeah,
period
yeah.
of time. You're living in a house. I had a lovely house. I wasn't sharing with anyone, so yeah, I was very happy. I really enjoyed it. I went
Excuse me,
back.
that
I've gone one back since, and I got quite tearful because it was such a special time in my life, and I really did. I enjoyed so much. I enjoyed it so much. I enjoyed the crew. Uh, working with such a broad spectrum of so many different internationals. There were people, there were Americans, there were Australians, there were English people, there was just so many people. So yeah, it was a very unique and very, very interesting experience.
Got it. Sounds like it for sure as you're talking about it and the way you expressing yourself about it. Um, what can we talk about Mission Impossible 8?
We can. I mean, obviously, under NDAs and stuff like that. I know it has been
Sure.
released now, so this it's a little bit more relaxed. But yeah, I can talk to my experience.
So I you can I would love for you to talk about your experience, but I may have a question here and two, and if it's something that kind of crosses the NDA, then just feel free to say so,
Yeah,
and we won't
sure.
go there. But just talk about your overall experience on Mission Impossible 8, and obviously the sequence that you were involved in, which I'm assuming obviously is the finale.
I actually haven't watched it yet, so I'm not really sure which part of
Oh,
it it is.
I'm talking about the plane sequence at
It's the
the
plane
end.
sequence. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, again, away shoot. That was shot in Hoedspruit, which is an area of South Africa, in the beautiful, beautiful Blyde Canyon. What's just happening? It's a absolutely stunning part of South Africa. I'd never been there before, so it was a first for me going there, and it's real quintessential Africa. You know, um, the Big Five. Everywhere, even wherever you stay. Sorry, my music for some reason is just turned on.
It's okay.
Uh, so everywhere you stay, even on, I was staying in a place called the Wildlife Estate. There's giraffe that are suddenly like walking past your house, or zebra eating your lawn, or warthog that's trying to get into your house. Monkeys everywhere. So really, just you're so close to nature, and you're so close to all of that. For me, I mean, I'm a huge animal person, so that was just like I was like. I also amazingly got to get involved with a project called Rhino Revolution that does you know uh, conservation and protection of rhinos, and I actually got to go and do some rhino dehorning to help save them. And I also used to ride horse. I used to do horse patrols for them um, in the mornings before work, just checking the fence perimeters of these farms to make sure that no poachers had come in overnight. So from that aspect of it, it was really incredible for me. Um, from the production side of things, um, really fascinating because we're used to being setters on the ground. You know, it's a very different concept when setters in the air. Um, I think we shot one sequence on the ground. That was it. The rest was all shot in the planes. Um, so it's set it becomes almost it's almost intangible, you know. Where is it? Oh, it's up there somewhere. So lots of helicopters, lots and lots and lots of helicopters. We had a lot of helicopters. You know how usually you'll travel around set in a van. You want to get from one
Mm,
place to the next. Unless you went in a helicopter. So if you needed to get to forwarding base one or forwarding base two, because we had our main headquarters on the ground, and then different aerial bases that if you needed to, if the planes needed to refuel or whatever, they were up on mountaintops. So in order to get there, you'd have to get in a helicopter and fly up there to go and talk to someone up there and then fly back down again. Um, and just the logistics of that. I mean, just building those forwarding bases up on the tops of these mountains. I mean, we've got some great photographs of helicopters, carrying portaloos like through the air to get to these forwarding bases. Um, but yeah, I mean the scope of it as well, the planes. So obviously the planes weren't locally sourced or anything like that. We had an Antonov, a massive Antonov plane that came in that contained all of our gear, because I was very specialized gear as well, because it's up in the sky. All the planes, everything like that, all arrived on a massive Antonov. And then we had a team of, because all the planes were disassembled. So they're not all perfectly in flying order inside the plane. They've all been disassembled and packed up neatly so that they can all fit. And we had a team of engineers who came in, and the Antonov landed, and one by one they put these planes back together and then fly them on out from Joburg to Hoedspruit. So massive logistical shoot. A lot of moving parts, a lot of logistics, a lot of things going on, and as I said, very very strange concept to think that your entire shoot is in the sky.
You use a word which I never thought of. I don't think it's ever been mentioned to my knowledge. The set was in the air. Like that's a really it just changes the whole thing in terms of
Mm.
how you look at that whole sequence. I mean, yes, as you see it, it looks completely disastrously difficult and tough to pull
Yeah,
off. But to hear those words, our set was in the air, and the only your objects or your set deck pieces were literally two planes, and that's it.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's crazy to hear it from that point of view.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's such a wild concept, especially, and everything has to be so precise because you're doing such crazy stuff. There's some crazy stunts there, and they're all real. And that really is Tom. It's not a stunt double. Um, all your equipment has to be so perfectly. If one little screw is out of place on that camera that's in that plane and it starts doing a nosedive, that can come apart and that can hurt someone. You know, every little piece of equipment has to be checked so perfectly and put together so perfectly that that if a plane suddenly flips or barrel rolls or does goes upside down, nothing's going to move. Like those cameras are all going to stay in place and nothing's going to move. So it's very incredible camera team, incredible group of guys and girls working on that job. You know, the South African contingent, we were really just like fixers almost in a sense. There were very few of us. We were basically in charge of all the logistics and the ground logistics and making sure that everyone could come in and film. But 90% of the technical crew were existing mission crew or specialist aerial crew, that they're brought on for the project, and just such amazing, wonderful people. I think in terms of nice, just genuinely nice people, and no assholes, and which is can be quite rare on film sets sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. And what was your role that whatever you're able to disclose on working on that sequence?
So I was the production supervisor.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so yeah, I mean, I was just in charge of day-to-day running of everything, making sure that everything was
Okay.
happening, making sure that you know that all the moving parts were going where they were supposed to be doing, and all that kind of stuff. Just real
And
production stuff.
and how long was the production for that sequence? The entire bit? Like what was the duration that you were sort of booked for on the set? Or,
I think it was around about 3 months,
I was gonna guess
three,
one
four
and a month.
months.
I was gonna guess 1.5 month, but 3, 4 months makes more sense.
Yeah.
Um,
So we
and
didn't only shoot in Hoedspruit. We shot Hoedspruit, then we shot Drakensberg. So not only did so just to explain as well, in order to house these planes and these helicopters and all that kind of stuff, you need an air hangar. Um, and we didn't have an air hangar, so we built our own air hangars.
of course, it's a Tom
Okay.
Cruise movie.
But they like we had this specialist group, and what they do is they put together. It's almost like they do a lot of events and stuff like that. Like we do like the Olympics or whatever. I don't know, but it's not a tent, but it's like a modular system that you build up. So we, of course, would throw the screed, um, a concrete slab, and then they'd build this modular hangar, as well as modular offices next to the hangar. So we had that set up in Hoedspruit, and then we moved from Hoedspruit to Drakensberg, which is about I think about a 2.5, maybe 3 hour drive, further up towards you're going towards the coast. So then that I think there's a sequence there where you see where the planes come out from the Blythe Canyon to the ocean.
Yep.
That's the Drakensberg. Um,
Okay.
and then we were potentially going to still go and do another sequence in KwaZulu-Natal, Durban. But they had just had massive flooding in the area. And I actually went up there ahead of the company just to check what things were like. And we decided not to go because it was just, the infrastructure and everything was just so damaged that we decided just to leave it at just doing Drakenstein and Hoedspruit.
So was that sequence, was that the part that was canceled, was that an additional sequence that never got shot to the film, or was it
It was. I mean, I'm not 100% sure because I never actually read
the
the
script?
script or what it was supposed to be. But that's also, I think it was just kind of more of the plane going out, towards
Mm,
the ocean. Similar thing to Drakensberg. But yeah, I can't remember or not if they did.
that's fine.
I can't remember
Uh,
or not if they did come back or they did it. I'm not 100% sure
sure.
as to how that all ended up. But I know that on the time that I was on it, we just decided not to go to Durban at that point, and yeah, we finished off in Drakensberg.
Were you, when the planes obviously, there's so many, the great thing about Mission Impossible films, which they recently started doing more, I think, especially in the last three, four films, is the behind the scenes stuff. They really show a lot of
Yes,
stuff that we probably will think is like a, green screen. Um,
it's not.
and of course it's not. And then a lot of stuff that you'll see is director MQ, you get see his reactions from a safety standpoint, not necessarily,
Yes,
you're looking at a craft of the shot and everything, but you're also figuring out in your head, what
yeah.
if. Were you physically present in those kind of settings where things were happening up there and there's like complete, fear of things possibly going wrong, or, just having that thing.
No, never.
So you never saw any of the actual planes going up, or was it? I'm
No,
just,
because you see, where our offices were, like I said, we had like base one.
yeah,
The planes take off from there.
and
So
that's it.
that's Hoodspruit. Then they fly. Probably the drive would be about 20 minutes. They fly a distance to get to the Blythe Canyon, which is the canyon you see that they go through. So then they'll stop at forwarding base one or two or whatever. But once they go, they're up in the air. They fly those sequences and then they come back. So I mean, the most we kind of ever saw from the ground were them flying in and out, and maybe occasionally doing, like a little bit of a barrel roll or a, loop de loop or something like that. But we weren't. You can't from again, like I said, the set is in the air. It's so
Yeah,
difficult to
yeah,
describe.
sure.
You're not actually physically present there. I think they had the helicopter that had the shot. I think it was the shot over system on it. Um, you know, that was always there filming, and I think McHugh a lot of the time was in that. So yeah, but they had their own communication stuff in the air, and it's far away from where we are, so you can't
Right.
really see it.
Fair enough. Any particular story that you can share that things were not going the way they were supposed to go? Not necessarily with the air sequence, just in terms of
Yeah,
being on the ground, that you can, one or two stories that you're willing to share.
I really I know this sounds strange to say, but I don't think there was anything. Um,
That is
working on
strange to hear.
no, but what I have to say is that working with the mission crew, they've been doing this for so many years.
Yeah.
It's the same crew on every movie, and it's such a well-oiled machine. That it just runs smoothly. Everyone knows their job. Everyone knows what they're doing. Everything just it goes. And I mean, I think a lot of Tom's philosophy is to practice to perfection on things. And that's just what you see. I think I've, I can't think of one particular thing where anything didn't go according to plan. I think there was one funny story about a local
Sure.
parachute guy who, uh, I think so one of the guys told me a story. It was he kind of, turned around and said something about like, um, the parachutes that we were using. He said that, oh, they're rubbish parachutes or something like that. And I mean, that's like the only thing. We just like laughed because we were like, what an idiot. He's probably even never seen these parachutes in his life before because they're so high tech. But I think that was pretty much it that I ever heard, you know. Um, but yeah, I mean, and I must say, on a personal front, I was always, I'd never really been a huge Tom Cruise fan. Like, I mean, he's great. He's, big A-list Hollywood star. He wasn't someone that I'd ever gone, oh, I'd really love to meet this guy. Um, but I have the most amount of respect for him. After working with him, I've never seen someone with so much dedication to his craft and just such an incredible work ethic. He rocks up, he shows up, he's on time, he does everything he's supposed to do. He does it with a smile on his face. He's not difficult, he's quiet, he's respectful of everyone. Everyone who walks into a room, he'll greet you, he'll say hello to you. I mean, some days he'd come and he'd hover because he flies to work. So he doesn't drive. So
Of course.
his helicopter, he flies in his helicopter to work. So some mornings he would come and, where our production office was a little bit away from the base. So as he'd fly over, he'd come and hover his helicopter, like in front of our production office, and we'd all wave, and then he'd wave at us, and, he'd fly off to the base. So, and he'd do fantastic things for his crew, on weekends, we're in the middle of nowhere, what are we supposed to do? And he'd organize events for us. He'd send us on safari. I mean, the one weekend we all got to go on, a 5-star Big Five safari tour. I mean, I saw the Big Five, all of them, and a hyena, because that's what I asked. The guide said to you, what do you really want to see? And I said, I want to see a hyena. And so we saw the whole Big Five, plus I saw a hyena. He organized a braai for us, which is like a barbecue. Massive, massive braai, one of the lodges. So just, I mean, I found them to all be really amazing. McHugh's such a lovely guy as well. Yeah, it was just a really pleasant experience. There wasn't any one thing that I can say was a disaster or something that went wrong. I think about the only thing that went wrong was that Durban had flooding. And, at the time, it wasn't a great idea for us to go there because I drove down there, and I mean, this is the one freeway. There was a container yard next to the freeway. And it looked like God had just picked up containers and thrown them like Lego onto the floor. They were just containers like lying all over the middle of the freeway and broken and stuff. And I just said, no, guys, it's not a good idea to come down here for now. Because they were still busy, cleaning up, disaster management and all of that kind of thing. So we just didn't do the Durban leg. But yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. Let's go back to your, as we wrap up, let's go back to your horse.
Horses.
Horses.
I
Let's go back to
now have 3 of them.
that's even better. Maybe you already have on not so Hollywood productions, but if not, would you like to do something that involves horses and not necessarily?
I have actually ridden. I have ridden as a work rider on movies before.
Which ones?
It was a series. I think it was for BBC or one of those things called Northman. It was a Viking saga.
Okay.
And I got it. They'd been filming it for like weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, and they only really had male riders on because it was so grueling. They wanted it to be so realistic that the armor was real, the chainmail was real, all of that stuff was real. You were riding in 20 to 30 kilograms worth of armor. So they decided that, only boys because it's so rough and so difficult. And a lot of the boys just went, I'm not doing this anymore. So the lady who was in charge of all the horses, she called me and she said, do you want to come? And I said, sure. And I went and did it for one night and said, never again. um, yeah, 30 kilograms, 20 to 30 kilograms worth of armor. So it's, you come in your own normal riding clothes. Then they put another set of, kind of cotton stuff over you so that none of your modern fabrics can ever be seen. And then on top of that, they put all these boiled leather, um, braces like on your arms and on your legs and the boots that you would be wearing. And then they put another layer of pants on top of you. And then they put a layer of felt, a tunic on you, then felt, then body, then chainmail, full chainmail, real chainmail. Then body armor, again, boiled leather with the metal sheeting and stuff like that, and a helmet. And once that helmet goes on
Wow.
your head, if you turn your head, the helmet doesn't bloody well turn. So you're riding, and you're riding it at 2 a.m. in the morning, in the middle of the night, galloping up a hill with 20 other riders towards a line of pikes. And once you hit the pikes set on fire, and you've got to jump off, pull your sword, and run. As if you're going to charge, and do that over and over and over again. And it was the middle of winter. It was like -2. And yeah, I mean, on my costume as well, they also gave me a full wolf pelt that I had to wear over my stuff as well. So it was a lot. By the end of the night, I was like, I don't ever want to do that again.
Was it your own horse that you had used, or was it production?
No, no, no. That was a production horse.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was a Frisian, one of those black horses with the long, feathery legs.
Nice. What's next for you that you were able to talk about, or are you taking a break? Anything around the horizon?
Currently, well, I'm quoting a lot of things. A lot of we do get a lot of amazing projects coming to South Africa because I've just got to say a little splurb about my country. We have the most amazing locations here. We have such diverse locations. You can have desert, you can have jungle, you can have whatever you can dream of. We'll find it in South Africa, location-wise. And we have great studio facilities here as well, real
Mm.
world-class studio facilities, and our crew, the level of our crew is really, really high. I mean, we're currently shooting projects like The Witcher comes to shoot here occasionally. We have Wheel of Time coming here occasionally. The whole of One Piece, the show on Netflix, One Piece, that's filmed here in South Africa. We shot Raised by Wolves. We shot Warrior. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Um, it's a fantastic, fantastic film location, and you really do get world-class services here. Me currently, I am currently pitching on a couple of projects. I'm attached to a couple of projects. They're not 100% greenlit yet. I'm just waiting to see what falls or what lands. And I'm also trying to. I've kind of put out a challenge to my local crew. And instead, if someone can find me a really good script that they really think is worthwhile, then I'll put all my effort behind trying to get it made. If it doesn't have financing, whatever, then I can try get people to work pro bono, see how we can do. See if it's a really great script. Like I want to find something that just shocks me, and I go, oh my word, like this has to be made. Uh, so that's kind of where I'm at the moment. That's like kind of a little sideline thing. And then again, as I said, I'm doing a lot of budgeting at the moment, and I think I'm attached to about 3 or 4 projects that haven't quite yet landed or been greenlit, that they're going ahead, or we don't know when they're going ahead, shall I say.
That's really cool. And that project that you're talking about, that script that really blows you away, um,
Yeah.
is it something that you seek financing from producers, or is it just you get people involved on a pro bono basis, or?
Pro bono.
Mm,
Pro bono, as far as I can. The only thing that I'm going to try and get finance for will be the insurance, the catering, and the fuel.
yeah,
Um, I want to find something really good that people go, hell yeah, I want to be part of that. And obviously, if it does well and if it sells well, we'll get paid off the back end. But I just want to find something that I think
What
is really worthwhile.
since the audience is listening to this, I mean, you don't know who's listening, right? So, what exactly is a great? I mean, I know what a great script is, but is a specific genre that you're looking for, or anything in wide open?
It's so wide open. I mean, the one kind of thing that I've said which will work in its favor will be that it needs to be um, very cleverly written in terms of not having a lot of locations. Okay, so if it's one or two locations, that's perfect. Shouldn't have a massive cast, um, but something that's really just like grips you from the word go. And I just want to try and find a project that maybe someone's been trying. They've had the story that they've written and they've been trying so hard to get it off the ground for so many years, and they've just never found that avenue or that way to get it off the ground. And I mean, for me personally, I've never gone into the side of trying to get financing or anything like that for movies. It would be a first for me as well, but it's something that that I'd really just want to do. I want to see what's out there and see if there's something that's where's the next Oscar movie coming from. That's that we don't know. It could just be sitting in someone's outbox. So
100%.
yeah.
You should listen to, I mean, as we wrap it up there, since you mentioned this could be an Oscar movie sitting on someone's lap. Have you ever seen that story of Kevin Costner and this friend of his who wrote a script? He talked about, I think, on the Graham Norton show. Did you ever see that?
No, I didn't know.
So obviously he told it in a very proper way, and I'll just try to summarize it. It kind of goes to what you were saying. So he had a friend, he makes friends, obviously, it's just like in people industry.
Yeah,
So he made this friend, and he was writing a script, and he wanted Tom to, not Tom, sorry, Kevin Costner to see it, and Kevin Costner being
yeah,
busy and everything, and so on and so forth. And, he said, I don't have any money. Can I stay in your house? And Kevin Costner
yeah,
let him stay in his house. And just things weren't working out right. And he did something, this guy did something to somebody, and Kevin Costner really called him out and he pushed him against the wall. He's like, you cannot do that in this industry. I don't remember the details.
yeah,
Um, and then this guy went and started doing, dishwashing and all that stuff on his own. He
yeah,
left Kevin's house. Years later, he came back to Kevin again. He's like, can you just please read my script?
yeah.
And Kevin did. And it was Dances with the Wolves,
Amazing.
right?
You
So,
see, you see, you just don't know.
yeah.
You just don't know. I mean, so, I put a post, to the effect of it on my Facebook, just calling out my local South African film family because I think there are so many incredible stories in this country. Hey, wow. Um, and so many talented people in this country. And, I've kind of sort of gone calling all. Who's got a script? Who's got one? I think there's one so far that is kind of my top contender that I've read so far that I think could be really, really good. Um, but yeah, as I said, I'm just still reading until I know that like, okay, this is the one. This is the one. This is the story that needs to be made. You know?
That's amazing. And I hope that does happen for you sooner than later because there are some great stories that never get made because of financial
Yeah,
reasons and we need them more than ever now. I feel, and I think a lot of other people do,
absolutely.
because the original stuff is gone out the window. Everything is about
It has,
IP
and
and right.
well, exactly. And I think that we're seeing like a global depression at the moment in film. With the streamers and the way people nowadays are consuming content. It's TikTok, it's YouTube. They will go and rather watch. They'll scroll through TikTok for 2 hours instead of watching a movie because the content is just not gripping people anymore. So because the streamers came along, we just had to churn out so much content just for there to be content. Um, a lot of stuff got made that just really isn't worthwhile, or it's not gripping. It's not like, oh my gosh, that's going to win an Oscar. That's going to win an Emmy. It's just very bland, mundane kind of content. And with what I'm doing now, I'm just trying to see like this. I know that stuff's out there. I know that it's out there. I know that there's still amazing stories to be told. It's not over. Film is not over.
No, It's not, and it
And
never will be, because stories are what make us who we are.
here we are, exactly. And that's why I got into it, and I have such a passion for it. And I mean, even with it being, a bit slow at the moment, I think with the industry, globally at the moment is a bit slow. Um, I'm not giving up. I love this. I love this industry. I love it. I always say to people, if you wanted to know how to class us, we were the carnival folk. The film crew, we were carnival folk. Back in the day, that's what we were. We ran the circus. We were the
Mm.
performers, we were the people who didn't quite fit in, the people who ran away from home and, were taken in into the carnival family. That's who we are. And we've got stories to tell.
I couldn't agree more. And I was talking to somebody else yesterday, and I literally told them this, that we are the most misunderstood people in the world in terms of as far as industry is concerned. Yet
Yeah,
people love watching what we make.
exactly.
The irony of that, right? So,
Yeah. Well, that's why I always say to people, I always say to crew, and because every crew member is just such a unique individual, uh, and I always ask people stories. I'm forever asking everyone's story. How did you get into the industry? How did you get into the industry?
yeah, yeah.
Oh, I didn't work out at this, and I couldn't do that, or I hated being in an office, or there's always, or whatever it is. It's always like I was just different. I was always different, and I wanted to do something different. And somehow I landed up in this world, and I loved it. And I'm like, welcome to the carnival. Let's go.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's true, and it's also true that I am a testament to that, and I'm sure a lot of other millions of people in this industry, is that sometimes you don't. I would say most of the times the path that you take to get to where you want is a path that you
Yeah.
had never imagined that would even come up out of
Yeah.
nowhere. Like it's just totally unexpected, something that didn't exist before, but you figured it out and you just leverage your
Yeah.
way to that.
Yeah. Very much
Amazing.
so.
Well, thank you so much, Britt, for your time. A fascinating conversation. I loved every second of it. Thank you so much for your time and appreciate all the work that
Awesome.
you've been doing.
Lovely work. Lovely chatting to you, Jawad. It was really great.
Thank
Thanks
you
so
so
much for
much.
having me. All
Pleasure.
right.
All right, take care.
Bye.
Bye.